Hey guys, DrDecks here. Today I've teamed up with Lumber Plus and they've asked me to review some of the biggest deck fails on the internet. So we're gonna start with some photographs and then we're gonna move on to some videos. Studio Man's gonna feed me this information. I'm gonna look at it. I haven't seen these before. It's completely raw. So it'll be my first view of whatever it is he's gonna show me. All right, first one coming up. Whoa. Yeah, they wanted to make sure to have safety rail all the way to the ceiling, like, so you don't fall from, I don't understand what's going on here. It looks like they used pallet wood or something. Okay, so some of these gaps are not to code. You can't have more than a 4-inch gap. It has to be less than 4 inches in between any member, up to either 36 inches in some jurisdictions or 42 inches for commercial. I don't know if this looks like a residence, so it'd have to be at least 36, and I see several violations there. The main thing that stands out is the railing. You can't have more than I say 3 15/16 opening, because if you're actually 4 inches and things flex, you could fail inspection. But there's no way it would have passed because this railing's not to code. I can tell the joists aren't all equally spaced. You know, it's better when I'm building a deck, I like to have all my joists the same distance apart unless I'm putting in some kind of a break or something like that. Wow. The bottom deck's not level. The left side of it is much lower than the right side. I'd hate to see the inside of this, but definitely not to code. Whoa! I gotta turn my phone sideways for this one. That's a major deck fail. Deck collapse to the max. So usually deck collapses happen because something at the house has failed. So proper ledger attachment is the lesson here. You must have proper ledger attachment and do your research. Make sure you're using the right fasteners, the right size member, and the proper amount of fasteners and the right construction type. They have to be structural. You can't just use screws from Home Depot to screw on to the side of a ledger or certain nails. You need to use something that really holds the ledger to the side of the house. What happens is either A, there was no flashing installed on the house, it got wet over the years and it finally rotted and decayed and just collapsed. Or there could have been a party on this deck and a lot of people all of a sudden moved and stopped, and then it pulls the deck away from the house and then it comes down, and then so you're going like this, the deck pulls away and then it goes like this, and then everybody falls and breaks their backs or dies. People die every year from poorly built decks. Again, same thing. This looks like a improper ledger installation, a deck fail where the deck was not properly attached to the house. There wasn't enough fasteners. This one you can actually see the side of the house and it's a little blurry, but it looks like there's some dry rot in the side of the house. So there probably was no proper flashing done to keep the water from going behind the ledger and in between the house. When that starts to happen, that's when bad things happen to your deck. So proper flashing and proper ledger attachment. Nowadays, we have to code, as we're building for an inspection, we have to add either these brackets, they're a lateral tension tie. Strong Tie makes them, Fasten Master makes them. And what they're designed to do is they're designed to hold on to one of the floor joists of the deck and also tie into either the sill plate of the house or the top of the joist plate of the house, or you need to be more intrusive and actually run all thread into the house and attach to the side of a floor joist for a proper connection so that the deck cannot pull away from the house. Oh, wow. So this deck, again, you're gonna find this type of failure a lot if it's not properly attached. It looks like maybe whoever built this deck might have took a break for lunch when they were hanging the ledger and they put a couple finish nails in it, and then they went to lunch and they came back and started building the deck, but maybe they forgot to totally just attach it to the house. I've heard of that happening before where, you know, people are so involved in what they're doing. Whenever I'm in a life and death situation when I'm building, I don't break until I'm confident that that step is done. We've already talked about why this deck has failed, but here's a good practice to be in. If you're gonna be a licensed and bonded or a legitimate contractor, responsible contractor, do not only temporarily suspend your ledger on the house and then walk away from it. Make sure that it's attached properly. I never leave joists just hanging on a house without a joist hanger on them. I'll never walk away for the evening or for the weekend if it's not secure. I'll stay late, whatever it takes, or I won't do it until the next day because I want to make sure that that deck is properly built. Oh no! I have an explanation for this one. This deck was not engineered for a hot tub. If you're gonna add a hot tub to a deck, think about it for a second. You're going to put up to 1,000 pounds on the deck, and then you're gonna add 400 gallons of water at 8 pounds a gallon. That's 3,200 pounds plus 1,000, that's 4,200 pounds plus everybody that's getting in it. So you're at 4,500 pounds at least before anything. And the joist hangers on the house aren't designed to support that kind of weight without additional beam support. So this time you're gonna wanna hire a structural engineer because that is just not how you wanna build a deck. It will not last, it will not stay, and that's just plain dangerous. So don't do that. Yeah, this deck looks like they've got temporary supports in between the standard supports, but you're supporting it on a wood retaining wall, which is never acceptable. You gotta have a real footing, either concrete, helical pile, something that's not gonna rot, decay, or sag. This is just a disaster waiting to happen. And then you've got all this stuff near the house with just more temporary supports. This is just bad. And they had room. They have about a foot past the beam. They could have put the footings down below the wall at the base of the wall, dug them into the ground. And yeah, it would have been taller, but it would have been much safer. Definitely a construction fail. Whoa, what happened here? Oh, is that their barbecue and their deck chairs? Yeah, you can see if you look at the house, you can see how the wood, some of it's still stuck to the side of the house. So some of the wood was attached, but not all of it, and it's rotten. So that means that the moisture has gotten to this. You can see on the house that they didn't pull the siding off. They just nailed the deck right to the side of the house. They didn't pull any of the siding. They didn't make sure they were attaching it to something secure. And then all those nail holes eventually absorb moisture because there's no way to flash that. If you're gonna attach something to the side of the house, you need to put something, a spacer between the siding and the ledger, and then attach it properly. And your local structural engineer will be able to help you decipher how many spacers you need, how many attachment points do you need, what lengths do they need to be. All that information can be deciphered with a local structural engineer. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay for that information, just like I do on every deck that I have permitted. Wow, that's too bad. Looked like a decent deck too, but the failure point right at the house. Well, you know, sometimes if you can't afford to have a really expansive or large deck built, you can just use some pallets and stack them up on some bricks. You know, hey man, it gets you out of the dirt. It's not gonna really hurt anybody because you're only gonna fall 6 inches. It's not exactly level, but you know, gets you out of the dirt. I don't know. I think I'd run down to Lumber Plus and grab myself some nice hardwoods and maybe build myself a little 8x8 or maybe a 6x6. Something not very large, but that you can really enjoy. Even something this small, it could be a nice little investment if you spend a little bit of money and make something nice that, and actually it'd look nice against the brick as well. So it'd be a win-win-win. All right, now we're gonna look at a couple videos. These are various TikToks that we found on that platform.
You know, you can bet your next paycheck that if somebody can cut a corner on a deck, they're gonna cut 2 corners. Take a look at this. Another set of stringers that isn't supported. So that's not even the bad part. Look how much wood we have bearing on this.
Oh,
what is that, like an inch? All right, this whole thing should be bearing. All it has to do is break off right there.
Yeah.
And then your staircase falls down.
And you have no support on the center.
People think
This massive deck is being held on by these little old tiny carriage bolts. Look at that.
So the stair set that he was talking about, the staircase he was talking about, definitely is not supported properly. There needs to be some additional support brought in from the backside of the deck to hang down, and that you can attach the entire staircase to. You can't just attach. Some people think, oh, well, it's centrifugal force. It's not going to fall because it's being pushed against it. But eventually that whole staircase can bow in and collapse because there was no center support. So this guy was right about that. So let's see what else he's got to say.
Thing should be, 5/8 of an inch. All right, so another issue that I'm noticing is, see these carriage bolts, you see how high they are? The next one, same spot. Next one, same spot. Same spot. It should go high, low. High.
He's right. Those carriage bolts are undersized. They're probably going into the mortar joints of the brick, and that's why they're that size, which I don't know if that's to code or not, but also they're too far apart. So they're about every 2 to 3 feet. You should probably have them at least every 16 inches staggered high and low like he's describing.
Just to prevent that perimeter band from splitting because of the stress. Now look at the spacing in between the floor joists and this back band. It's because they don't have cross bracing on the sides of this deck. And it's allowing the back of this deck to just lean outward.
Wow. So something has pulled away. There's no metal connectors holding the joist to the beam. And everything is pulling away like up to an inch, which is bad because it's just nails holding the joist to the beam. And you can kind of see it as he's walking through that this whole beam is pulled away from the joists and leaving this monster gap.
Now, if you look at the gap in between these floor joists and that rear band, you notice how it gets smaller or the gap closes as I move my way to the end, which tells me that the most movement is in the middle of this deck. Look at this huge stair set. What is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stringers. And no support. Midspan. Should be some support right here, right? So this thing doesn't sag. This perimeter band, or this outside band, is just sitting on top of these posts. Now, sometimes that's okay. I'll tell you, one of the best ways to do it is to continue that post all the way up and have these things either carriage bolted to it or notched, notched out, and they sit right here. Half of it sits right here, and the other half just hangs off, and it's connected through carriage bolts. That's the best way to do it.
All right, those are some excellent examples of what not to do on a deck. There's several spots on that project that definitely need to be addressed, and he did a pretty good job explaining that.
A question for TikTok Deck Police. Tell me this doesn't look messed up. I'm no deck expert, but this just doesn't seem right so far. The joist in the middle is sagging. You can see it in the boards.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but it does look like there is a sag. Could be your beam sagging, which means you don't have enough beam support. I don't do girder style beams anyways. I always use solid type beams. It depends where you're located in the United States, depending on what type of materials you can get and the style and how our things are built in that particular region. I know East Coasters use a lot of southern yellow pine and pine product, and they don't have solid beams out of pine. So they'll double or triple a beam, or they'll sandwich a beam over in between two posts, but it's not typical construction where I'm from. So that's probably your problem there, is that if there's a sag in the deck, then the beam's probably sagging as well, so that the joists are kind of like falling down and then coming back up on the other side.
Inspecting decks. I don't know how everybody is so terrible at decks, but I rarely see one that's done right. Here we go. That's not quite gonna work.
Wow,
Yep.
It's just sagging. Oh my gosh.
Ledger's ripping off.
Oh, I'm only laughing because
Broken.
it's so unbelievable.
The guardrails that are attached to all of that are super loose.
Wow.
I've inspected so few decks over the years that are built correctly and don't have issues. It's mind-blowing. please hire a contractor that knows what they're doing. Like, it's...
Yeah, please hire a
They're always
contractor that
wrong.
knows what they're doing. I agree with that information. That's crazy. Yeah, that was done terribly. It's like somebody picked it up and just moved it a little bit and dropped it back down, and then it just fell apart.
All right, TikTok contractors, let's just take a look at this here.
Wow.
Check out that sweet handrail where if somebody slips and falls, they're just going to fall to
Yeah,
their death.
a child could just fall right through that.
Let's just check out this handrail here. Really nice graspable handrail with all of those spindles, making sure that people don't slip side to side when they're going down these goat trail of a stair.
Oh man, the stairs are backwards.
What do you suppose it is there?
There's nothing to code on this deck at all.
I don't know. 13.8?
No,
Just
man.
let me know what you think about this thing.
It should be torn down. That deck should be torn down and thrown away, and a professional should come in and rebuild that. There's nothing legal or safe about that deck at all. I can't say one good thing about it.
What happens when a deck collapses?
Yep, this is exactly what happens. We've actually done this at home shows before as well, where we show you what happens when a deck collapses, and it's usually sponsored by Strong Tie. A lot of deck collapses happen at the ledger, and it's a perfect example of what happens when the ledger fails on a deck. And that's exactly what happens. Make sure you have a good ledger to house connection on your deck.
How, in the name of all that's holy, did you do that?
Again, this deck should be taken down. That's so tall. Those posts should probably be engineered posts where they're actually glue lams or laminated posts so that they can't twist and warp that way, because that's such a tall rise that there's no way that can safely be habitated. You can't habitate on that at all. For one, the rails are out of code. There's no beam, at least from what I can tell. And the posts are so tall, you can't use a 4x4. I mean, you could use a 6x6 and that would probably fly. But with something that tall, I'd probably use a 5x5 laminated post. I would probably get them pressure treated, or, try to buy them pressure treated, and then you wouldn't have this issue. All right, this will be our last video today.
Now, it's Friday morning, and let me just show you how my Friday morning is getting started. There's not enough money to make whoever did this deck any better.
Oh my gosh.
That's the fix they put in. Because you ran everything so crooked from the house out. You had this massive bow
That
in it.
doesn't even look new.
Oh, let's just scab this into the middle.
Man,
Then we'll throw some more deck boards up at the end.
crazy.
Because you're a good tradesman, you kept it consistent. Because you did the same damn thing on the front deck. So let's have a look at this disaster. Now that's just beauty. Just beautiful. Oh yeah. And then to scab in a piece like that at the front door. That's perfection. God. Terrible.
It's almost like somebody did this on purpose just for the video. It's such bad quality that there's no way that you could get around this. It's terrible. I don't know what the bottom of the frame looks like, or for as far as safety purposes or things like that, but the surface, the beautiful part, is so ugly and so bad. I don't know how it would ever pass an inspection. Just when it comes to a point, it's sitting a ½ inch above the rest of the decking. How are you going to keep that down? It's just ridiculous. It's entry-level decking material, 5/4 by 6 treated. So instead of buying this garbage material, I would maybe go buy Lumber Plus, and for just a few bucks more, you can get a nicer grade. They have exotic hardwoods that are not much more than a standard pressure treated board, or they have thermally modified woods as well that aren't going to twist and warp like you see in this picture. They're going to be nice and straight. And if you start with a straight board, you usually finish with a straight board. So part of the problem here is that the materials are so warped and messed up that they probably started with a curved board and then they just kept installing right next to those. So start with a good quality lumber supplier like Lumber Plus, and then you won't have these issues. And don't forget, they avoid the middleman, so they're going direct from the forest to Lumber Plus, right to you. That's how come their premium materials can cost less, and then that upgrade fee won't be that much. Don't forget to check them out. And thank you very much, Lumber Plus, for sponsoring this video. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Some really interesting information. If you have any questions, though, don't forget to leave them below, and I'll try to get back to you in a responsible time frame. We really appreciate you coming to our channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day.